Okay, I got the 16 Pro recently, and while I thought I could adjust to the smaller size and battery life, I missed the larger Max version, so I ordered a 16 Pro Max. As you can see from the packaging, there's a sizable difference between the two, 6.3 inches versus 6.9 inches. Aside from the size and battery life, both devices share identical features, so if you prefer the smaller Pro this year, you're only missing out on the battery life and larger, more immersive display. I do appreciate the smaller model occasionally. After all, it's lighter, more pocket friendly, less expensive, and it's nearly bezel-less with this 6.3-inch display offering more screen real estate than last year's 15 Pro. However, there's something about the Pro Max, aside from the battery, that I personally prefer. Let's quickly unbox the Pro Max to compare these two side by side, and I'd like to share some of my initial impressions of the 16 series. The unboxing experience is identical, still boring unfortunately, and there's not much in the box either. I'm surprised the USB-C cable and paperwork is still included. But here we have both the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max in Desert Titanium side by side, and yes, the 6.9-inch size definitely makes a noticeable difference here. But in terms of weight, they're pretty much on par. I'll show a few more angles here for comparison if you're still undecided. However, if you're upgrading from a 14 or 15 series iPhone, unless you always want the latest model, there's not much of an upgrade here. The refinements are quite subtle, more on that in a moment. Transferring from one iPhone to the next is pretty smooth, but I did notice a few different things. There's an initial camera control setup, which I'll discuss shortly. Also, the old Siri is still present since the new Siri isn't ready yet, and it's only available in beta. Speaking of beta, if you're already using it, you can install the beta directly from the setup. Restoring is a breeze, even on iOS 18 Beta 4. As for my overall experience with the new iPhone 16 series so far, noticeable differences are hard to find. The refinements are minimal. Having used the 15 Pro extensively, it feels identical to that experience. While many companies, including Apple, are focused on AI over hardware, even iOS 18 feels unfinished, which is unusual for Apple, with many 16 series features delayed until later. The cameras seem nearly identical to the 15, except for the impressive new 4K 120 FPS mode. Differences in the new ultra-wide lens are really hard to notice though. While I know most people don't upgrade annually, it feels like Apple sold us the same phone with a new button. Speaking of the new camera capture button, which is indeed a physical button despite how Apple markets it, it's quite terrible. Like Steve Jobs' aversion to the stylus, I find it easier to just use my fingers to open the camera app and pinch to zoom. You can adjust the button sensitivity and accessibility settings, but it's still just awful and not something I'll use. It seems just redundant since the action button can also launch the camera. I hope Apple removes this button entirely in its next generation iPhones or repurposes it for Touch ID. I don't think it's practical, and I believe 90% of consumers will rarely ever use that. While the 16 Pro's battery life isn't bad, the 16 Pro Max offers a significant improvement, one of the main reasons I'm switching. Design-wise, the capture button remains in the same spot, but I wish Apple had moved it lower, especially on the Pro Max, to make quick point and shoot photos more ergonomic. Here are some additional angles to help you choose between the two models. Seeing them side by side, I personally prefer the Max for its feel and size. With the Pro Max nearly set up, you can also compare the displays. For watching YouTube and Apple TV+, the larger, more immersive screen is ideal. Both displays are excellent, bright, and nearly bezel-less. I also tried the Teal 16 Plus because the color is fantastic, but after years of using 120Hz displays, I can't use a 60Hz display on a $700 to $800 phone, especially when even $200 phones like the CMF Phone 1 have 120Hz displays and are under $300. As I mentioned, these models are very similar to the 14 and 15 series, but if you're upgrading from an older iPhone, there will be worthwhile updates. You might want to wait for buying these to see if Apple delivers on iOS 18 promises. Unlike me, I wouldn't recommend installing beta software on your main device. That's my overall comparison though of the 16 and 16 Pro Max, along with some initial impressions after using the 16 Pro for a few days. Are you getting one? Did you upgrade already? Which iPhone 16 series did you get? Let's discuss in the comments down below, and as always, thank you for watching, take care, and stay safe.